Madame la greffière, je vais vous demander de donner le numéro de l'affaire. La greffière d'audience, oui, Monsieur le Président, affaire IT 0256I. Le procureur contre Momir Nikolić. Le Président, merci. Je me tourne maintenant vers le banc de l'accusation et je souhaiterais, Monsieur McCloskey, que vous nous présentiez votre équipe. Monsieur McCloskey, oui, bonjour. Bonjour, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour à la Défense. Je m'appelle Peter McCloskey. Je représente le bureau du procureur. Je suis accompagné aujourd'hui de Melissa Epstein, de Diane Moylan et Janet Stewart est notre assistante. Le Président, merci. Et pour la Défense, micro. Je m'appelle Stéphane Krisch, je viens de Francfort et je représente les intérêts de Monsieur Nikolić. Le Président, Monsieur Krisch, avez-vous reçu les documents nécessaires à la préparation de cette comparution initiale? La Défense, oui, j'ai reçu l'acte d'accusation hier soir, je l'ai lu et j'en ai parlé à mon client ce matin. Le Président, merci. À ce stade de la procédure, je me tourne vers Monsieur Nikolić, qui comparaît ici aujourd'hui sur la base de la version définitive de l'acte d'accusation du 26 mars 2002. Il a été arrêté le 1er avril et transféré à La Haye aujourd'hui et se trouve depuis au quartier pénitentiaire des Nations Unies de Scheveningen. Monsieur Nikolić, je vais vous demander de vous lever, s'il vous plaît. Je souhaiterais en premier lieu vous poser plusieurs questions. Mes premières questions ont uniquement pour objectif de vous identifier. Pouvez-vous, s'il vous plaît, nous donner votre nom de famille, tous vos prénoms ainsi que votre surnom éventuel? Réponse, je m'appelle Momir Nikolić. Je n'ai pas de surnom particulier. Question. Et les prénoms de votre père et de votre mère? Réponse. Mon père s'appelle Vaso Nikolić. Ma mère, Milenia Nikolić. Question. Pouvez-vous nous donner, s'il vous plaît, votre date et lieu de naissance? Réponse. Je suis né le 20 février 1955 à Bratunac, en Republika Srpska, ou plutôt en Bosnie-Herzégovine. Question. Quelle était votre profession ou votre emploi avant de venir ici? Réponse. J'enseigne les sciences politiques. J'ai obtenu mon diplôme à Sarajevo et pendant un certain temps, j'ai travaillé en tant qu'enseignant. Ensuite, j'ai travaillé dans le cadre de l'administration de la municipalité. En quelques mots, voilà ce qu'il en est de mon parcours professionnel. Donc, je suis professeur de sciences politiques dans le secteur de la défense. Question. Et pouvez-vous nous donner votre dernier lieu de résidence? Réponse. Mon premier et dernier lieu de résidence, c'est la municipalité de Bratunac, où je suis né. Je suis né à Bratunac, c'est là que j'ai vécu, c'est là que j'ai été à l'école et j'y suis resté jusqu'à la date de mon arrestation. Je n'ai jamais quitté Bratunac, sauf pendant mes études à Sarajevo. Question. Dernière question. Êtes-vous marié? Avez-vous des enfants? Réponse oui. Oui, je suis mariée. J'ai des enfants. Mon épouse enseigne la littérature. J'ai 2 fils. L'un d'eux étudie l'ingénierie mécanique à Belgrade, l'autre a 12 ans. J'ai également une mère ma mère a 70 ans et elle vit avec nous. Question. Merci, Monsieur Nikolić. Nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui à l'occasion de votre comparution initiale devant le tribunal. A priori, on peut considérer qu'il ne s'agit là que d'une simple formalité, mais en fait, Cela constitue un point essentiel dans toute la procédure, puisque cela donne les orientations de toute la procédure. Pourquoi une comparution initiale? Eh bien, l'accusation a demandé à la Chambre de première instance de confirmer un acte d'accusation contre vous sur la base de l'existence de présomptions. Dans le même temps, on nous a présenté une demande aux fins de délivrance d'un mandat d'arrêt qui a entraîné votre arrestation. En temps normal, la partie adverse, c'est-à-dire vous, Monsieur Nikolić, doit avoir le droit d'être entendu et informé avant qu'une décision ne soit prise. Mais vu la nature des décisions que j'ai mentionnées, il n'a pas été possible de vous entendre à l'avance. Nous allons y apporter remède aujourd'hui. Vous allez avoir la possibilité de contester aussi bien l'acte d'accusation que votre arrestation et le fait que vous soyez maintenant privé de liberté. Afin de mieux comprendre ce qui se passe ici, afin que vous puissiez mieux le comprendre, je vais demander maintenant à la greffière d'audience de nous rappeler les dispositions statutaires qui vous octroient un certain nombre de droits. Vous pouvez vous asseoir dans l'intervalle et je vais demander à Madame la greffière d'audience de lire les articles 20 et 21 du statut du tribunal et l'article 62 du règlement de procédure et de preuve. Article 20. Ouverture et conduite d'un procès. La Chambre de première instance doit faire en sorte que le procès soit juste et équitable et rapide et à ce que l'instance se déroule conformément aux règles de procédure et de preuve, les droits de l'accusé étant pleinement respectés et la protection des victimes et des témoins dûment assurée. Toute personne contre laquelle un acte d'accusation a été confirmé et conformément à une ordonnance ou un mandat d'arrêt décerné par le tribunal international placée en état d'arrestation, immédiatement informée des chefs d'accusation portés contre elle et déférée au tribunal international. La Chambre de première instance donne lecture de l'acte d'accusation, s'assure que les droits de l'accusé sont respectés, confirme que l'accusé a compris le contenu de l'acte d'accusation et lui ordonne de plaider coupable ou non coupable. La Chambre de première instance fixe alors la date du procès. Les audiences sont publiques à moins que la Chambre de première instance décide de les tenir à huis clos conformément à ses règles de procédure et de preuve. Article 21 du statut. Les droits de l'accusé. Tous sont égaux devant le tribunal international. Toute personne contre laquelle des accusations sont portées a droit à ce que sa cause soit entendue équitablement et publiquement, sous réserve des dispositions de l'article 22 du statut. Toute personne accusée est présumée innocente jusqu'à ce que sa culpabilité ait été établie conformément aux dispositions du présent statut. Toute personne contre laquelle une accusation est portée en vertu du présent statut a droit en pleine égalité au moins aux garanties suivantes. À être informée dans le plus court délai, dans une langue qu'elle comprend et de façon détaillée, de la nature et des motifs de l'accusation portée contre elle. À disposer du temps et des facilités nécessaires à la préparation de sa défense et à communiquer avec le conseil de son choix. À être jugée sans retard excessif, à être présente au procès et à se défendre elle-même ou à avoir l'assistance d'un défenseur de son choix. Si elle n'a pas de défenseur, à être informée de son droit d'en avoir un et chaque fois que l'intérêt de la justice l'exige, à se voir attribuer d'office un défenseur sans frais si elle n'a pas les moyens de le rémunérer. À interroger ou faire interroger les témoins à charge et à obtenir la comparution et l'interrogatoire des témoins à décharge dans les mêmes conditions que les témoins à charge. À se faire assister gratuitement d'un interprète si elle ne comprend pas ou ne parle pas la langue employée à l'audience. À ne pas être forcée de témoigner contre elle-même ou de s'avouer coupable. Article 62 du règlement. Comparution initiale de l'accusé. Après le transfert d'un accusé au siège du tribunal, le président attribue immédiatement l'affaire à une chambre de première instance. L'accusé comparaît sans délai devant la chambre ou un juge permanent de celle-ci et y est mis formellement en accusation. La chambre de première instance ou le juge s'assure que le droit de l'accusé à l'assistance d'un conseil est respecté. Donne lecture ou fait donner lecture de l'acte d'accusation à l'accusé dans une langue qu'il parle et comprend, et s'assure que l'intéressé comprend l'acte d'accusation. Informe l'accusé que, dans les 30 jours suivant sa comparution initiale, il lui sera demandé de plaider coupable ou non coupable pour chaque chef d'accusation, mais qu'il peut, s'il le demande, plaider immédiatement coupable ou non coupable pour un ou plusieurs chefs d'accusation. Si l'accusé ne plaide ni dans un sens ni dans l'autre lors de la comparution initiale ou lors d'une comparution ultérieure, prend note en son nom d'un plaidoyer de non-culpabilité. Si l'accusé plaide non coupable, donne instruction au greffier de fixer la date du procès. Si l'accusé plaide coupable, A. Devant la chambre de première instance, agit conformément à l'article 62 bis ou, devant un juge, renvoie le plaidoyer à la chambre de première instance pour qu'elle agisse en conformité avec l'article 62 bis. Donne instruction au greffier de fixer toute autre date appropriée. Le président, merci beaucoup, Madame la greffière d'audience. Je vais résumer, Monsieur Nikolić, afin que tout soit parfaitement clair. Vous avez bien compris que vous avez le droit de garder le silence, que l'on ne pourra en tirer aucune conclusion à votre désavantage si donc vous décidez de garder totalement le silence. La seule conclusion que l'on pourra en tirer, elle est visée à l'article 62, où vous pouvez lire la chose suivante. Si l'accusé ne plaide ni dans un sens ni dans l'autre lors de la comparution initiale, le juge prend note en son nom d'un plaidoyer de non-culpabilité. Mais je dois vous avertir dans le même temps que tout ce que vous dites dans le prétoire pourra être utilisé contre vous dans le cadre de la présentation des éléments de preuve. Cependant, la justice requiert que je vous indique ce qui va de pair avec cette règle. La pratique veut, dans ce tribunal, que toute coopération de votre part jouera en votre faveur. Et au cas où l'on ne vienne pas à la phase de la fixation de la peine, il serait dans votre intérêt d'accélérer la procédure. Et au cas où on en arrive au moment où il faille fixer une peine à votre encontre, la coopération, bien entendu, jouera en votre faveur. C'est à vous, avec votre conseil de la défense, de décider ce qu'il en est, ce qui va dans votre intérêt. Est-ce que vous avez bien compris, Monsieur Nikolić, l'accusé? Oui, je comprends. Le président, merci. Fort bien, nous allons maintenant prendre connaissance des charges contenues dans l'acte d'accusation établi au 26 mars. Vous pouvez vous asseoir. L'accusé, merci. La greffière d'audience, le tribunal pénal international pour l'ex-Yougoslavie, affaire IT 02-56-1, le procureur du tribunal contre Momir Nikolić. Acte d'accusation, le procureur du tribunal pénal international pour l'ex-Yougoslavie, en vertu de son autorité conférée par l'article 18 du statut du tribunal, accuse Momir Nikolić de génocide ou complicité de génocide, meurtre, persécution, transfert forcé et actes inhumains, des crimes contre l'humanité et de meurtre, une violation des lois ou coutumes de la guerre, établie de la manière suivante. L'acte d'accusation n'ayant pu encore être traduit en français, les interprètes ne pourront assurer que la traduction des chefs d'accusation eux-mêmes. La traduction définitive sera incluse au compte-rendu d'audience à une date ultérieure.
By profession, Momir Nikolić is a teacher. He was mobilized into the army on 18 April 1992, at which time he was stationed at the headquarters of the Territorial Defense as the Assistant Commander for Intelligence. In July 1995, he was assigned to the VRS 1st Light Infantry Brigade in Bratunats Brigade, where he held the rank of Captain First Class and served as the Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence. His brigade, which was responsible for the security of territory opposite the northern, eastern, and southern boundaries of Srebrenica enclave, directly participated in the actual capture of the Srebrenica enclave. Superior authority, position of the accused. During the VRS attack on the Srebrenica enclave and the subsequent killings and executions of Bosnian Muslim men, Momir Nikolić was a captain first class and served as assistant commander, chief, for security and intelligence of the Bratunats Brigade. He was present in the Bratunats Brigade zone of responsibility during the attack on the Srebrenica enclave from 4th July 1995 to 1st November 1995. As Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence, Momir Nikolić's responsibility under the security aspect of his position were to monitor enemy activities within and against Bratunats Brigade units and to propose measures to the brigade commander to counter security threats posed by the enemy. This include identifying traitors or other security threats inside Bratunats Brigade units, as well as dealing with enemy threats from outside, such as sabotage, surveillance, and intervention activities of the enemy. He was also responsible for managing the Bratunats Brigade Military Police Company and proposing ways to utilize members of the company. He was also responsible, in general, for coordinating with the bodies of the MUP in the brigade zone of responsibility. As Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence of the Bratunats Brigade, by virtue of the authority vested in him by his commander, Vidoje Blagojević, and as defined by the Yugoslav People's Army JNA regulations adopted by the VRS, Momir Nikolić had responsibility for dealing with captured Bosnian Muslim prisoners from Srebrenica from 11th July 1995 until at least 1st November 1995. General allegations. At all times relevant to this indictment, a state of armed conflict exists in the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina. At all relevant times, the accused was required to abide by the laws and customs governing the conduct of war. All acts and omissions charged as crimes against humanity were part of widespread or systematic attack directly against the Bosnian Muslim civilian population of Srebrenica and its surroundings. Factual background. On 12th of May 1992, Momir Krasnić, President of RS National Assembly, executed the following decision on strategic objectives of the Serbian people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This decision was published in the official Gazette of Republika Srpska on 26 November 1993. The strategic objective or priority of the Serbian people in Bosnia and Herzegovina are to establish state border separating the Serbian people from the other two ethnic communities, set up a corridor between Srebrenica and Krajina, establish a corridor in the Drina River Valley, that is, eliminate the Drina as border separating Serbian states, establish a border on the Una and Neretva River, divide the city of Sarajevo into Serbian and Bosnian Muslim parts, and establish effective state authority in both parts. Ensure access to the sea for Republika Srpska. After armed conflict erupted in the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina in the spring of 1992, Bosnian Serb military and paramilitary forces attacked and occupied cities, towns, and villages, including Zvornik, in the eastern part of the country and participated in an ethnic cleansing campaign which resulted in the exodus of Bosnian Muslim civilians to enclaves in Srebrenica, Gorazad, and Zepa. On 19 November 1992, General Ratko Mladić, the commander of the VRS main staff, issued Operational Directive 04. This directive, in part, ordered the Drina Corps to inflict the heaviest possible losses on the enemy and force him to leave the Birac, Jepa, and Gorazad area together with the Bosnian Muslim population. First, offer the able-bodied and armed men to surrender, and if they refuse, destroy them. On 16 April 1993, the Security Council of the United Nations, acting pursuant to Chapter 7 of its Charter, adopted Resolution A19, in which it demanded that all parties to the conflict in the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina treat Srebrenica and its surroundings as a safe area, which was to be free from any armed attack or any other hostile act. On 4 July 1994, Lieutenant Colonel Slavko Onjanovic, then commander of the Bratunac Brigade, issued a report to all members of the Bratunac Brigade stating in relevant part, "We must continue to arm, train, discipline, and prepare the RS Army for the execution of this crucial task, the expulsion of Muslims from the Srebrenica enclave. There will be no retreat when it comes to Srebrenica enclave. We must advance. The enemy's life has to be made unbearable and their temporary stay in the enclave impossible so that they leave the enclave en masse as soon as possible, realizing that they cannot survive there." On 8 March 1995, the Supreme Command of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Srpska issued Operational Directive 07. In this directive, Republika Srpska President Radovan Karadzic directed the VRS, specifically the VRS Drina Corps, to complete the physical separation of the Srebrenica and Zepa enclaves as soon as possible, preventing each communication between individuals between these two enclaves. By planned and well-thought-out combat operations, create an unbearable situation of total insecurity, with no hope of further survival or life for the inhabitants of Srebrenica or Zepa. On 2 July 1995, in the Drina Corps operational order for the attack on the Srebrenica enclave, General Milko Zivanovic ordered that the attack of the enclave should result in reducing the enclave to its urban area. The size of the enclave on 2 July 1995 was approximately 58 square kilometers, and the urban area of the enclave was about 2 square kilometers. Large numbers of the Bosnian Muslim population of the enclave lived outside the urban area of Srebrenica prior to 2 July 1995. On or about 6 July 1995, units of the Drina Corps shelled Srebrenica and attacked Dutch manned United Nations observation posts, which were located in the enclave. The Drina Corps attacked on the Srebrenica enclave, including the shelling, continued through 11 July 1995, when forces from Zovnik Brigade's Drina Wolves, the Bratunac Brigade, and 10th Sabotage Detachment and other units of the VRS entered Srebrenica. In the several days following this attack on Srebrenica, VRS forces captured, detained, summarily executed, and buried over 7,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys from the Srebrenica enclave, and forcibly transferred the Bosnian Muslim women and children of Srebrenica out of the enclaves. The details of these events and the role of each accused therein are presented in the paragraphs below. Individual criminal responsibility. Direct criminal responsibility. Pursuant to Article 7(1) of the Statute of the Tribunal, Momir Nikolić is individually responsible for genocide or complicity in genocide, crimes against humanity, murder, persecutions, forcible transfer, and inhumane acts. and murder as a violation of the laws or customs of war. Momir Nikolić committed, planned, instigated, ordered, and otherwise aided and abetted in the planning, preparation, and execution of these charged crimes. By using the word committed in this indictment, the prosecutor does not intend to suggest that the accused necessarily physically and personally perpetrate any of the crimes charged. Committing the crime can be accomplished by virtue of participation in the joint criminal enterprise. Joint criminal enterprise. Momir Nikolić, together with other VRS and MUP officers and units as identified in this indictment, was a member of and knowingly participate in a joint criminal enterprise, the common purpose of which was to forcibly transfer the women and children from the Srebrenica enclave to Kardania on 12th of July and 13th July 1995, and to capture, detain, summarily execute by firing squad, bury, and rebury thousands of Bosnian Muslim men and boys aged 16 to 60 from the Srebrenica enclave from 12th of July 1995 until and about 19th July 1995. The last known primary burial of Srebrenica victims occurred on or about 19th July 1995 in Grokova. The initial plan was to summarily execute more than 1,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys aged 16 to 60 who were separate from the group of Bosnian Muslim in Potchari on 12th and 13th July. On 12th July, this plan was broadened to include the summarily execution of over 6,000 men and boys aged 16 to 60 who were captured from the column of Bosnian Muslim men escaping the Srebrenica enclave on 12th of July through about 19th July 1995. Most of these men and boys from the column were captured around the Bratunac military road on 13th July 1995. While the joint criminal enterprise contemplated organized and systematic executions, it was foreseeable to Momir Nikolić that opportunistic criminal acts, such as those described in this indictment, would be carried out by VRS or MUP forces during and after the joint criminal enterprise. VRS and MUP forces carried out such opportunistic criminal acts from 12th of July 1995 to about 1st November 1995. The implementation of this joint criminal enterprise resulted in the summary execution of over 7,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys from the Srebrenica enclave. Momir Nikolić possessed the criminal intent and state of mind required to commit individual crimes charged in the indictment, and his acts significantly assisted and facilitated the commission of the crimes. The participation of the accused in the joint criminal enterprise and the specific acts and responsibilities described in this indictment satisfy the elements required for a finding that, pursuant to the meaning of Article 7.1 of the Statute of the Tribunal, Momir Nikolić committed, planned, instigated, ordered, and otherwise aided and abetted genocide, crimes against humanity, including murder, persecutions, forcible transfer, and inhuman acts, and murder as a violation of the laws and customs of war. These specific acts and responsibilities of Momir Nikolić pursuant to this joint criminal enterprise are described in the indictment. The joint criminal enterprise, of which Momir Nikolić was a member and a key participant, was conceived and designed by General Ratko Mladić and others on 11th and 12th July 1995, and administered and carried out by members of the VRS and MUP forces through the time period and by the means alleged in this indictment. Members of this joint criminal enterprise included General Ratko Mladić, the commander of the VRS, General Minako Zivanovic, commander of the Drina Corps through about 20 hours on 13 July 1995. General Radoslav Krstić, Chief of Staff, Deputy Commander, through about 20 hours on 13 July 1995, and thereafter Commander of the Drina Corps. Colonel Vidoya Bragoyevich, Commander of the Bratunac Brigade. Colonel Vinko Padurevich, Commander of the Zovnik Brigade. Lieutenant Colonel Dragan Obranovich, Deputy Commander and Chief of Staff of the Zovnik Brigade. Momir Nikolić, Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade. Dragan Jokic, Chief of Engineering of Zovnik Brigade, and various other individuals and military and police units, including but not limited to the following: Drina Corps units, elements of the Bratunac Brigade, elements of the Zovnik Brigade, elements of the Vrasenica Brigade, elements of the 5th Engineering Battalion, main staff units, elements of the 10th Sabotage Detachment, elements of 65th Protection Regiment, MUP units, elements of the Republika Srpska Special Police, elements of the Bratunac Municipal Police, elements of Milici Municipal Police, elements of Zovnik Municipal Police. As Assistant Commander, Chief for Security and Intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, Momir Nikolić was directly subordinate to Colonel Vidoya Bragoyevich, Commander of the Bratunac Brigade, who in turn was directly subordinate to General Radoslav Krstić, Commander of the Drina Corps. A detailed summary of the military structure of the VRSF is affixed to this indictment as Annex 1. On 11 July 1995, 4 units of the Ministry of the Interior were placed under the command of the VRS. These allegations concerning individual criminal responsibility, including those cited in the Joint Criminal Enterprise paragraphs, are realleged and incorporated with each other into each of the charges set forth below. Charges: Counts 1A to 1B, genocide, complicity to commit genocide. By his acts and omissions, described.
Chef 1A et B, génocide, complicité de génocide. Par les actes et omissions mentionnés au paragraphe suivant, Momir Nikolić a commis: Chef 1A, génocide, sanctionné par les articles 4.3a et 7.1 du statut du tribunal, ou à défaut, chef 1B, complicité de génocide, sanctionné par les articles 4.3 petit e et 7.1 du statut du tribunal.
1995 and 1st November 1995. Momir Nikolić, with intent to destroy a part of Bosnian Muslim people as a national, ethnical, or religious group, A, killed members of the group by summary execution as described in paragraph 17, 22, 25 to 27, 29, and 30 to 36, and B, caused serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. Immediately after the fall of Srebrenica, on 11 July 1995, senior VRS officers, including Ratko Mladic and Radoslav Krstić, surveyed the town. At this time, Ratko Mladic announced that the moment has finally come for us to take revenge upon the Turks here. Thousands of Bosnian Muslims from the enclave, including women, children, and some men, fled to the UN compound in Potocari on 11 July 1995, where they sought the protection of the Dutch battalion. Meanwhile, approximately 15,000 Bosnian Muslim men from the enclave, with some women and children, gathered at the villages of Susan Yari and Yalici during the evening of 11 July 1995, and fled in a huge column through the woods towards Tuzla. Approximately 1/3 of this group consists of armed Bosnian Muslim military personnel. The rest were civilians and unarmed military personnel. On the evening of 11th July and the morning of 12th of July, Ratko Mladic and other VRS officers convened 3 critical meetings at the Hotel Fontana in Bratunac concerning the fate of the refugees who had fled to Putuchari. At the first meeting, held at approximately 20 hours on 11th July, Ratko Mladic met with other members of the VRS, including Momir Nikolić, and with the Dutch Bed Command. At the first meeting, Ratko Mladic intimidated and threatened the Dutch combat commander. The second meeting was convened by Ratko Mladic, Radoslav Krstić, Momir Nikolić, and other members of the VRS at approximately 23 hours on 11th July, and was attended by members of the Dutch Bed Command and representative of the Bosnian Muslim refugees in Potocari. At this second meeting, Ratko Mladic warned the Bosnian Muslim representative that their people could either survive or disappear. At the third meeting, convened at about 10 hours on 12 July 1995 by Ratko Mladic, Radoslav Krstić, and other VRS and Bosnian Serb civilian representatives, and attended by Dutch Bed officers and representatives of the Bosnian Muslim refugees, Ratko Mladic explained that he would supervise the evacuation of refugees from Potocari and that he wanted to see all military-aged Bosnian Muslim men so that they could be screened as possible war criminals. During the meeting at the Hotel Fontana from the evening of 11th July to the early morning of 12th of July 1995, the plan to transport the civilian refugee population from Potocari was developed. By his presence in these meetings and his subsequent actions in Potocari, Momir Nikolić took part in the planning and implementation of the forcible transfer of civilians from Potocari. As Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, and by virtue of authority vesting him by his commander, Momir Nikolić was responsible for the handling of prisoners in Potocari. The Bosnian Muslim refugee population remained in and around Potocari from 11th July until 13th July 1995, during which time they were terrorized by members of the VRS and the MUP. The separations of men took place in the presence of Momir Nikolić. As Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, and by virtue of authority vesting him by his commander, Momir Nikolić shared responsibility with other members of the Joint Criminal Enterprise for the separation of men and transportation of the Bosnian Muslim civilian population in Potocari. On or about 12th of July 1995, in the presence of Ratko Mladic, Radoslav Krstić, Momir Nikolić, and others, approximately 50 to 60 buses and trucks arrived near the UN military compound in Potocari. Shortly after the arrival of these vehicles, the forcible transfer process of Bosnian Muslim women and children began. As the Bosnian Muslim women, children, and men started to board the buses and trucks, VRS and or MUP soldiers separated over 1,000 Bosnian Muslim men from the women and children and transported these men to temporary detention sites in Bratunac on 12th and 13th July 1995. Momir Nikolić was present and on duty in Potocari during this period, and he participated in the separation and transportation of the Bosnian Muslim population. Beginning around 12th of July 1995 and continuing throughout the period of organized executions, personal property and effects belonging to the Bosnian Muslim male prisoners, including their identification documents and valuables, were confiscated and destroyed by members of VRS and the MUP. This confiscation and destruction of personal property and effects occurred while Momir Nikolić was present in Potocari at various points of capture and collection along the Bratunac-Milici Road and at various execution sites. In addition, the prisoners in Potocari and in Bratunac were not provided with food or medical treatment, nor with any meaningful rations of water during their days in detention pending execution. VRS and MUP officers and soldiers committed a number of opportunistic killings of the Bosnian Muslims in Potocari on 12th and 13th July 1995. Such opportunistic killings occurred as a natural and foreseeable consequence of the unfolding joint criminal enterprise. These Bosnian Muslims were taken prisoner in Potocari before being killed. As Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, and by virtue of the authority vested in him by his commander, Momir Nikolić supervised the handling of prisoners in Potocari and was responsible for the prisoners. Momir Nikolić was present on duty in Potocari during this period, along with members of the Drina Corps, the Drina Wolves, and the Bratunac Brigade, the Zovnik Brigade, and the MUP. The opportunistic killings in Potocari result in the following. On 12th of July, the bodies of 9 Bosnian Muslim men who had been shot were found in the woods near the UN compound on the Budak side of the main road. On 12th of July, the bodies of 9 or 10 Bosnian Muslim males were found about 700 meters from the UN compound behind the White House in a creek. On the morning of the 13th July, the bodies of 6 Bosnian Muslim women and 5 Bosnian Muslim men were found in a stream near the UN compound in Potocari. On 13th July, 1 Bosnian Muslim man was taken behind a building near the White House and summarily executed. Between 12th of July and about 17th July 1995, approximately 6,000 Bosnian Muslim men from the Quorum of Men escaping the Srebrenica enclave were captured by or surrendered to VRS and MUP forces. Momir Nikolić was present along the Bratunac military road on 13th July 1995 and was involved in the capture and detention of Bosnian Muslim prisoners in that area. Apart from those transported directly to execution sites, the prisoners captured from the Quorum on 13th July 1995 were taken to the same temporary detention sites in and around Bratunac as those men separated from Potocari. VRS and MUP officers and soldiers committed a number of opportunistic killings of Bosnian Muslim prisoners, temporarily detained in Bratunac in schools, buildings, and vehicles parked along the road. Such opportunistic killings occurred as a natural and foreseeable consequence of the joint criminal enterprise. As Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, and by virtue of the authority vested in him by his commander, Momir Nikolić had responsibility for these Bosnian Muslim prisoners. These opportunistic killings occurred between 12th July and about 15th July 1995 in several different locations in Bratunac, namely, on 12th of July, beginning at approximately 22 hours and continuing through 13th July, more than 50 Bosnian Muslim men were taken from the hangar behind the Vuk Kalajic Elementary School in Bratunac and summarily executed. On 13th July, at approximately 20:13 hour, 2 Bosnian Muslim men were taken off a truck in Bratunac town, taken to a nearby garage, and summarily executed. On 13th July, in the evening, a Bosnian Muslim man who were mentally retarded were taken off a bus parked in front of the Vuk Karadzic Elementary School in Bratunac and summarily executed. On 13th July, during the day, 1 Bosnian Muslim man was beaten about the head with a rifle at the Vuk Karadzic School and was subsequently taken away and summarily executed. Numerous other Bosnian Muslim men detained at the Vuk Karadzic Elementary School were also summarily executed during the day of 13th July. On the evening of 13th July, 4 young Bosnian Muslim males were taken from the area of the Vuk Karadzic School and were summarily executed. Between the evening of 13th July and the morning of 15th July, Bosnian Muslim males were frequently and consistently taken from the Vuk Karadzic Elementary School and summarily executed. Those Bosnian Muslim prisoners who survived their temporary detention in Bratunac were transported to the Zovnik area between 13th and 15th July 1995 for further detention and execution. VRS and MUP forces participated in a planned and organized mass execution and burial of thousands of captured Bosnian Muslim men from the Srebrenica enclave. This joint criminal enterprise took place over a 7-day period from 12th of July until about 19th July 1995. As assistant commander for security and intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, and by virtue of the authority vested in him by his commander, Momir Nikolić had the responsibility for all of the Bosnian Muslim prisoners captured or killed in the Bratunac Brigade zone, as well as for all those prisoners captured in the Bratunac Brigade zone and later transported with his knowledge to be executed in the Zovnik Brigade zone. Specifically, the military police and MUP forces under the direction of Momir Nikolić organized the detention and transportation of thousands of prisoners to execution sites around Zovnik, including Orahovac, Pekovac, Ilica, and Kuzlak. These wide-scale and organized killings of Bosnian Muslim men occurred in several different locations in and around Srebrenica, Bratunac, and Zovnik, and are as follows. Potocari, on 12th of July 1995, in between the zinc factory and Alia's house, VRS and or MUP soldiers summarily executed by decapitation approximately 80 to 100 Bosnian Muslim men. The bodies were then taken away on a truck. Momir Nikolić was present in Potocari, not far from Alia's house, on 12th of July 1995. Yada River. At approximately 11 hours on July 13, 1995, a small squad of soldiers consisting of at least one Bratunac police officer, Bratunac MUP, working with individuals and units of the VRS and or MUP, captured approximately 16 Bosnian Muslim men from the cordon of men retreating from Srebrenica enclave, transport them from Konjovic Polja to an isolated area on the bank of Yada River, and summarily execute 15 of them. One individual was wounded and managed to escape. Cheska Valley. On 13th July 1995, in the early afternoon hour, VRS and or MUP soldiers transported about 150 Bosnian Muslim men to an area along a dirt road in the Cheska Valley, about 3 kilometers from Konjovic Polja, summarily execute them and using heavy equipment, cover them with dirt. Kravica Warehouse. On 13th July 1995, in the early evening hour, VRS and or MUP soldiers summarily execute over 1,000 Bosnian Muslim men detained in a large warehouse in the village of Kalavica. The soldiers used automatic weapons, hand grenades, and other weaponry to kill the Bosnian Muslims inside the warehouse. On 14th July 1995, heavy equipment arrived and removed the victims' bodies to 2 large mass graves located in the nearby village of Grogova and Ravnac. Tischa. Throughout the day, on 13th July 1995, VRS and or MUP soldiers transported Bosnian Muslim women and children who had been separated from male members of their family in Potocari to an area near Tischa village. VRS soldiers from the Vrancnica Brigade of the Drina Corps identified and separated some remaining Bosnian Muslim men and boys and some of the Bosnian Muslim women from this group at Tischa, while the rest of the group was forcibly transferred to Bosnian Muslim territory. Throughout the day on 13th July 1995, VRS soldiers forced the select Bosnian Muslim men and women to walk to a nearby school, where they were abused and assaulted. On or about the evening of 13th July 1995 and the day of 14th July 1995, VRS and or MUP soldiers loaded 25 Bosnian Muslim men from the school onto a truck, drove them to an isolated pasture nearby, and summarily executed them with automatic weapons. Orahovac, near Lazet. In the late evening hours of 13th July and during the day of 14th July 1995, personnel from the military police company of the Bratunac Brigade, working together with other individuals and units, transported hundreds of Bosnian Muslim males from in and around Bratunac to the Gapovic school in the village of Arahovac. These Bosnian Muslim men had been captured from the column of men retreating from the Srebrenica enclave or separated in Potocari. On 14th July 1995, VRS personnel, including members of the military police company of Zovnik Brigade, guarded and blindfolded the Bosnian Muslim males detained at the Gabovic school. In the early afternoon of 14th July 1995, VRS personnel transported these Bosnian Muslim males from the school at Grabovac to a nearby field, where personnel, including members of the 4th Battalion of Zovnik Brigade, ordered the prisoner off the trucks and summarily executed them with automatic weapons. Approximately 1,000 Bosnian Muslim males were killed. On 14th and 15th July 1995, members of the Zovnik Brigade Engineering Company used heavy equipment to bury the victims in mass graves at the execution site, while the executions continued. On the evening of 14th July, lights from the engineering machinery illuminated the execution site and burial sites during the executions. The Pekovic School. On 14th July 1995, VRS and or MUP personnel transported approximately 1,000 Bosnian Muslim males from detention sites in and around Bratunac to the school at Petkovic. These Bosnian Muslim men had been captured from the column of men retreating from the Srebrenica enclave or separate in Potocari. On 14th July and the early morning hours of 15th July 1995, VRS and or MUP personnel struck, beat, assaulted, and shot with automatic weapons Bosnian Muslim males being detained at the school. The dam near Petkovic. On or about the evening of 14th July 1995 and the early morning hours of 15th July 1995, VRS personnel from the Zovnik Brigade, including drivers and trucks from the 6th Infantry Battalion and the Zovnik Brigade, transported the surviving members of the group of approximately 1,000 Bosnian Muslim males from the school at Petkovic to an area below the dam near Petkovic. They were assembled below the dam and summarily executed by VRS or MUP soldiers with automatic weapons. In the morning of 15th July 1995, VRS personnel from the engineering company of the Zovnik Brigade, working together with other individuals and units, used excavators and other heavy equipment to bury the victims while the execution continued. Pilica School. On or about 14th and 15th July 1995, VRS and or MUP personnel transported approximately 1,200 Bosnian Muslim males from detention sites in Bratunac to the school at Pilica. These Bosnian Muslim men had been captured from the column of men retreating from the Srebrenica enclave or separate in Potocari. On or about 14th and 15th July 1995, VRS military personnel with automatic weapons summarily executed many of the Bosnian Muslim males who had arrived or were being detained at the school. On 17th July 1995, VRS personnel from the R Battalion of the Zovnik Brigade retrieved the bodies of the victims from the Pilica school and transported them to the Branjevo military farm. On 17th July 1995, the engineering company of the Zovnik Brigade buried the victims of the Policha school execution in a mass grave at the Branjevo military farm. Branjevo military farm. On the morning of 16th July 1995, VRS personnel transported the remaining members of the group of approximately 1,200 Bosnian Muslim males from the Policha school by bus to the Branjevo military farm. These Bosnian Muslim men had been captured from the caravan of men retreating from Srebrenica enclave or separated in Potocari. After the Bosnian Muslim males arrived at the Branjevo military farm, they were summarily executed by automatic weapon fire from members of 10th Sabotage Detachment and the Bratunac Brigade, working together with other individuals and units. On 17th July 1995, VRS personnel from the engineering company of the Zovnik Brigade, working together with other individuals and units, buried hundreds of victims in a nearby mass grave. Policha Culture Center. On 16th July 1995, VRS personnel from the Bratunac Brigade traveled a short distance to the village of Policha and worked with other VRS and or MUP personnel to summarily execute with automatic weapons approximately 500 men inside the Policha Culture Center. These Bosnian Muslim men had been captured from the caravan of men retreating from Srebrenica enclave or separate in Potocari. On 17th July 1995, VRS personnel from the R Battalion of the Zovnik Brigade retrieved the body of the victims from the Policha Culture Center and transport them to the Branjevo military farm. On 17th July 1995, the engineering company of the Zovnik Brigade buried the victims of Policha school executions in a mass grave at the Branjevo military farm. Kozluk. On or before 16th July 1995, VRS and or MUP soldiers, working together with other individuals and units, transport about 500 Bosnian Muslim males to an isolated place near Kozluk, in the Zovnik Brigade zone of responsibility, and summarily execute them with automatic weapons. These Bosnian Muslim men had been captured from the caravan of men retreating from Srebrenica enclave or separated in Potocari. On 16th July 1995, VRS soldiers from the engineering company of the Zovnik Brigade, working together with other individuals and units, buried the victim of the executions in a mass grave nearby. As assistant commander for security and intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, and by virtue of the authority vested in him by his commander, Momir Nikolić had responsibility for all of the Bosnian Muslim prisoners captured or killed in the Bratunac Brigade zone, as well as all prisoners captured in the Bratunac Brigade zone and later transported with his knowledge to be executed in the Zovnik Brigade zone. For instance, on 14th and 15th July 1995, Momir Nikolić coordinated with the Bratunac Brigade Military Police Company regarding issues relating to transportation, detention, and execution of prisoners. During and after the campaign of organized executions, the opportunistic killings of captured Bosnian Muslim men from the Srebrenica enclave by VRS and MUP personnel continued to occur through about 1st of November 1995. These opportunistic killings, which were a natural and foreseeable consequence of joint criminal enterprise, occurred in the zone of responsibility of both the Bratunac Brigade and the Zovnik Brigade. As assistant commander for security and intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, and by virtue of authority vested in him by his commander, Momir Nikolić had responsibility for all the Bosnian Muslim prisoners captured or killed in the Bratunac Brigade zone, as well as all prisoners captured in the Bratunaz Brigade zone and later transported with his knowledge to be executed in the Zovnik Brigade zone. Such opportunistic killings are as follows. Bratunaz Brigade zone, Nova Kasaba. At some time from 13th July through 27th July 1995, VRSN or MUP personnel captured and executed 33 Bosnian Muslim men from the Koran freeing the Srebrenica enclave. At least 26 of the victims were summarily executed after having been placed in two recently dug graves. 27 of the 33 men had their hands tied behind their backs when they were executed. These graves were located near the village of Nova Kasaba. Konjović, Polja. At some time from 13th July through 27th July 1995, VRSN or MUP soldiers captured two Bosnian Muslim men from the Koran, placed them in a pit near the village of Konjović, Polja, and summarily executed and buried them. Grogova. At some time from 17th July through 27th July 1995, VRSN or MUP soldiers captured 12 Bosnian Muslim men from the Koran, tied them together in 6 pairs, shot each of them in the head, and buried them in a mass grave near the village of Grogova. Klavica Market. During the night between 13th July and 14th July, near a supermarket in Klavica, a VRSN MUP soldier placed his rifle barrel into the mouth of a Bosnian Muslim prisoner and summarily executed the man. Also during this period, VRSN or MUP soldiers struck, beat with the rifle butts, and summarily executed Bosnian Muslim prisoners who were detained on trucks near the supermarket. All of these prisoners had been captured from the Koran of men retreating from the Srebrenica enclave or separate at Potocari. Bratunaz Brigade. At some time from 12th of July through 1st of November 1995, 6 Bosnian Muslim men from Srebrenica were captured by MUP forces, turned over to, and interrogated by security personnel from the Bratunaz Brigade under the command and control of Momir Nikolić, and thereafter summarily executed by unknown persons. One of these persons, Resit Sinanović, was captured by a MUP soldier, Srpska, and turned over personally to Momir Nikolić before being executed. The identification details for these 6 Bosnian Muslim men are as follows. Zaziv Avetic, son of Ramo, date of birth 15th September 1954. Munib Ndadic, son of Amin, date of birth 26 April 1956. Azid Hasic, son of Osman, date of birth 8th April 1966. Resit Sinanović, son of Rahman, date of birth 15th October 1949. Mojo Husic, son of Osman, date of birth 27th August 1961. Hasib Ipsivevic, son of Ibrahim, date of birth 27th February 1964. Zovnik Brigade Zone, Nazuk. On 19th July 1995, VRS personnel from the 16th Brigade of the 1st Kanaina Corps resubordinated to the command of Zovnik Brigade, captured approximately 10 Bosnian Muslim males from the Koran and with automatic weapons summarily executed them at a place near Nazuk. Zovnik Brigade. On or about 19th July 1995, the following 4 Bosnian Muslim men were captured from the Koran by VRS and or MUP forces in the Zovnik Brigade zone of responsibility and turned over to Zovnik Brigade security personnel. Sakib Kiveric, son of Sako, date of birth 24th June 1964. Ami Mustafik, son of Refit, date of birth 7th October 1969. Forward, Djordjic, son of Senusia, date of birth 2nd May 1965. Amir Halilovic, son of Suyo, date of birth 25th August 1980. On or about 22nd July 1995, these men were interrogated by Zvonik Brigade personnel and were summarily executed sometime thereafter by unknown persons working together with the Zvonik Brigade security personnel. Zvonik Brigade. On 20th August 1995, Dasmir Salilovic, a Bosnian Muslim from Srebrenica, was captured by forces of the Zvonik Brigade near Kalisina while attempting to cross over the Muslim-held territory. Mr. Salihovic were interrogated by personnel from the Zvonik Brigade and was summarily executed sometime thereafter by unknown persons. From about 18th July through about 1st of November, additional members of Bosnian Muslim Quorum were captured or killed in the Bratunac and Zvonik Brigade zone by VRS and MUP forces. As Assistant Commander for Security and Intelligence of the Bratunac Brigade, and by virtue of the authority vesting him by his commander, Momir Nikolić had responsibility for all of the Bosnian Muslim prisoners captured or killed in the Bratunac Brigade zone, as well as all prisoners captured in the Bratunac Brigade zone and later transported with his knowledge to be executed in the Zvonik Brigade zone. From about 1st of August 1995 through about 1st of November 1995, VRS and MUP personnel participate in an organized and comprehensive effort to conceal the killings and executions in the Zvonik and Bratunac Brigade zones of responsibility by reburying bodies exhumed from initial mass graves at the following locations: Branjevo Military Farm, Kuzluk, the dam near Petkovic, Orahovac, and Grogova, and transferring them to secondary graves at 12 sites along Chanchary Road, containing bodies from Branjevo Military Farm and Kuzluk, 4 sites near Lipilia, containing bodies from the dam near Petkovic, 7 sites near Hosic, containing bodies from Orahovac, and 7 sites near Zeleny Jada, containing bodies from Grogova. This reburial operation was a natural and foreseeable consequence of the execution and original burial plan conceived by the Joint Criminal Enterprise. On 16 October 1995, Momir Nikolić was involved in the exhumation and reburial of the execution victims. The conduct of Momir Nikolić met the requisite 4 elements of genocide, namely that A. The accused killed one or more persons. B. Such persons belonged to a particular national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. C. The accused intended to kill the persons. And D. The accused killed the person in furtherance of the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, that national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. Or, in the alternative, the conduct of Momir Nikolić met the requisite 3 elements of complicity in genocide, namely that A. The accused was an accomplice in the commission of a crime. B. The crime was committed. And C. The accused knew that the crime was being committed in furtherance of the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. And
Chef 2, extermination. Par ces actes et omissions décrits dans les paragraphes précédents, Momir Nikolić a commis. Chef 2, extermination, un crime contre l'humanité, sanctionné par les articles 5b et 7.1 du statut du tribunal.
Conduct of Momir Nikolić met the requisite 4 elements of extermination as a crime against humanity, namely that A. There was an armed conflict. B. In a manner relating to a widespread or systematic attack directed against the civilian population, an act or omission of the accused, or a subordinate caused the death of the victim. C. The act or omission was unlawful, unintentional, reckless, or grossly negligent. And the accused had knowledge of the wider context in which his conduct occurred.
Chef 3 et 4. Assassinat. Par ses actes et omissions décrits dans les paragraphes précédents, Momir Nikolić a commis. Chef numéro 3. Assassinat, un crime contre l'humanité, sanctionné par les articles 5A et 7.1 du statut du tribunal.
Conduct of Momir Nikolić met the requisite 4 elements of murder as a crime against humanity, namely that A. There was an armed conflict. B. In a manner related to a widespread or systematic attack directly against a civilian population, the accused caused the death of 1 or more persons. C. By such conduct, the accused intended to kill or to inflict serious injuries in reckless disregard of human life. And D. The accused had knowledge of the wider context in which his conduct occurred. And count 4.
Chef 4. Assassinat, une violation des lois ou coutumes de la guerre, sanctionné par les articles 3 et 7.1 du statut du tribunal.
Conduct of Momir Nikolić met the requisite 4 elements of murder as a violation of laws or customs of war, namely that A. There was a nexus between the murder and an armed conflict. B. The conduct of the accused caused the death of 1 or more persons. C. By such conduct, the accused intended to kill or to inflict serious injury in reckless disregard of human life. Or D. The victim or victims were persons taking no active part in the hostilities. And count 5.
Chef 5. Persécution. Par ses actes et omissions écrits dans les paragraphes précédents, Momir Nikolić a commis, le chef 5, persécution pour des raisons politiques, raciales et religieuses, un crime contre l'humanité, dont meurtre, traitement cruel et inhumain, le fait de terroriser la population civile, la destruction de biens personnels et le transport forcé, sanctionné par les articles 5H et 7.1 du statut du tribunal.
The conduct of Momir Nikolić met the requisite 4 elements of persecution as a crime against humanity, namely that A. There was an armed conflict. B. In a manner related to a widespread and systematic attack directly against a civilian population, the accused committed acts or omissions against a victim or victim population, violating a basic or fundamental human right. C. The accused's conduct was committed on political, racial, or religious grounds, and was committed with requisite discriminatory intent. And D. The accused had knowledge of the wider context in which his conduct occurred. As described in this indictment, the crime of persecution was perpetrated, executed, and carried out by and through the following means. A. The murder of thousands of Bosnian Muslim civilians, including men, women, children, and elderly persons. B. The cruel and inhuman treatment of Bosnian Muslim civilians, including severe beatings at Potocari and detention facility in Bratunac and Zvornik. C. The terrorizing of Bosnian Muslim civilians in Srebrenica and at Potocari. D. the destruction of personal property and effects belonging to the Bosnian Muslims, and E, the forcible transfer of Bosnian Muslims from the Srebrenica enclave, and count 6.
Chef 6, par ses actes et omissions décrits dans les paragraphes précédents, Momir Nikolić a commis le chef numéro 6, acte inhumain, transfert forcé, un crime contre l'humanité sanctionné par les articles 5I et 7.1 du statut du tribunal.
Dated this 26th day of March 2002, The Hague, the Netherlands.
Thank you very much.
Le président, je vous remercie, Madame la greffière. Avant de demander à Monsieur Nikolić s'il veut se prononcer, aujourd'hui, nous allons faire une pause. Nous reprendrons l'audience à 5h moins 20.
All rise. Veuillez vous lever.